Welcome. This is Daniel Cutright, and welcome to today's episode of Winning Mentality with my special guest today, Mr. Eddie Brown. Eddie, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Well, super excited to have you, Eddie. Eddie, you are the executive director and founder of Giving Words. We'll certainly get into a little bit about your background, but just to kick us off, tell us a little bit about Giving Words. What do you guys do?
All right. So Giving Words is a nonprofit that works with single moms. And we are trying to help with emergency situations that they may find themselves in, whether there's a dryer that is broken, washing machine, car repair, or some of the major things that kind of will offset a budget and kind of set a mom back. So we focus on those things. We're also focused on trying to create a community around these moms, because that's one thing that they lack. And in my own life, um, there are times that I felt isolated and kind of like the Lone Ranger almost. And so it's always been helpful for me and helpful for these moms to have a community, somebody they can call that can sympathize and understand the position that they're in. So that's kind of what Giving Words does.
Awesome. And how did this come about? How did this get started? I know you and I talked a little bit about just your background the other day and how that played into Giving Words. Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So, part of my background is I was really struggling around from the range between 20 and 26. And I was struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder. And I didn't know what that was. And when I was struggling through it, I was reading self-help books, really seeking out, trying to figure out what was going on with me. I knew something was up, but didn't know what was up. So I ended up, getting to a doctor, getting diagnosed around 26 with obsessive compulsive disorder, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. And for me, it was checking. And I'm a designer by trade, which is very precise type work. And so you could take, for instance, a 40-hour work week, and that became a 60-hour work week because I would check and check and check and recheck. And in the design world, that's actually a good thing because it reduces those mistakes, but it can be out of control. And it can have an impact on all the people around you as you're struggling through that thing. So worst of worst, I was checking the door locks probably around 30 to 35 times a night. Lack of sleep, different things that went along with that. And so I got to a doctor, and it was pretty neat. I'm sitting in front of her for the first time, and she's like, "I can tell you what's wrong with you." And I'm like, "Well, that would be excellent because I've been searching for 3 years." And she said, "I've got 3 letters for you, OCD." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And, she said obsessive compulsive disorder. And my initial reaction was sorrow, like, why me? Why do I have to struggle with this? And I was like that probably for the first 2 or 3 months battling this thing. And I went through a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, where you expose yourself to the experience that creates the anxiety, which kind of causes that anxiety to go over the roof. And I worked through this process for a year, and checking that door lock. And so I would make myself not go and then just live in that anxiety. And then, about a year later, I woke up one morning, I went to leave the house to go to work, and went to grab the door handle and realized that the door was unlocked. And I actually busted out laughing because I had felt like I had got over this hump. One of the things that she had told me as well is, like, if you want to hit this thing head on, the thing that makes it difficult is change. When things change, it aggravates it. And so I made a bold step. And so one of the things I did is I picked up from Danville and I moved to Charlottesville. I was a designer. I worked from home. So I didn't, I was by myself at work every day. I did everything at home in a home office. And so I moved from Danville to Charlottesville and took on a management position managing a trust plant. And so I moved, which was a big change for me. Um, and then I also changed careers drastically to do something that I'd never even done. And so, like my first day of work, I've got 50 some employees looking at me saying, all right, what's the game plan today? And the trust plant that I was running was about a $5 million trust plant. And that really helped me get over a really big hurdle. It was not easy. When I started doing that trust plant, I went ahead and got my CDL Class A. I have worked the saws, I've built trusses, I've delivered trusses, I've designed trusses, I've ran operations after I managed a trust plant for a while. So I kind of got to wear all these hats. And in that 12-month period of time, we went from a negative $500,000 cash flow to a positive $500,000 cash flow. And so those experiences I'm able to relay over into Giving Words and use those same principles in a nonprofit realm, and pull those from the business aspect. And so that's just a component of my background that goes into Giving Words, and the stuff that we do.
That's awesome. No, and I know we'll probably get to this a little bit, but how you really use that ultimately as an asset
Sure.
in Giving Words. But maybe just to back up a step before we go there, why Giving Words? Like why was that something that was a cause that you wanted to pursue, an organization that you wanted to start?
Right. So my mom was a child of a single mother, and it was a single mother that had 4 kids. 2 kids went into foster care. My mom and her sister were raised by grandparents, and I could see a direct impact on my mother. The direct impact on my mother then transferred to me and my sister as well. And so when you're dealing with a single mom that's struggling, that's going to affect that generation and the generation after, and possibly the third generation. Um, and then the other component was, my sister was also a single mom at 2 points in her life as well. And so just kind of watching those struggles, and then my wife, she was a single mom for 10 years. And so when me and her met and started dating, I could just see the effects of being a single mom for 10 years, like the car breaking down and having to figure out how to get it fixed because you can't afford it, the well pump going out and not being able to afford to fix the well pump. And we've currently got 44 moms and right around probably 90 children.
Wow.
And and our statistics inside of Giving Words is basically a $500 amount is an activating event that kind of turns things upside down. And now we're wondering how we're going to pay our rent, how we're going to buy our groceries. Very stressful situation. And probably after about 2 years into Giving Words and looking at our own statistics, I realized that the federal statistic is $433. And so kind of realizing how close we are to that average, to a national average within, 44 moms and 90 some children, is kind of running line, right together there.
Yeah.
And, and so
What
those
are
are some of the experiences, just, my mom being raised. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, what are some of the statistics in general on single moms? Because there's a pretty big disparity between the amount that a lot of these single moms are actually making versus what it takes to support a child in a household.
Right. So if you look at Louisa, um, and, and the survival budget for one mom and one child is right around 42,000.
Hmm.
And we have mothers that are, single mom with 2 children that are right around 22,000. So you're looking at a $20,000 gap, and the 42,000 survival budget doesn't even allow for savings. At the 42,000, and kind of I'm a numbers guy and systems and process guy. So basically, I looked at the $42,000 survival budget, took a Dave Ramsey budget, plugged the numbers into it. And at 42,000, you've got $693 for rent. You can't really rent anywhere for that. Louisa, you're looking at 900 and above, even if you can find 900. And so even at 42,000, they're going to have a food disparity and they're going to have a vehicle disparity, because if they have a major repair, they're not going to be able to afford to fix it. Well, then you take that 42,000 and you trunk that down to 22,000. When we get a single mom, we have no question that she needs our help, because the numbers are there. And then, so if you look at government assistance, the cutoff for a mom and two children is $21,330, and so they're about $500-600 above that number. So you kind of have no man's land, where there's no assistance, and that's kind of where we step in. And then we also want to be a resource to where if it's something that we're not doing, like say for instance in Louisa, we've got a wonderful food bank, and so if we can take a mom, look at the budget, get her linked up with the food bank, and take care of that grocery bill, then that's going to give her more money for rent or more money for car repair or whatever that may be. And so just kind of trying to work with that mom to figure out, this is where we're at, how do we get to where we want to be, which is stability. And really the goal is to get them to the point to where they're not struggling, and they can invest in their children, whether it be playing Legos, coloring, or whatever it may be. You're not able to do that if you're wondering how you're going to get back and forth to work to keep your job, how are you going to put food on the table at night, or how are you going to pay that rent. And so I've been in that position myself, with being very young with two kids, married with two incomes, and struggling to get by, and wondering those things. And so it was really difficult. I had to really kind of leave the stuff, when I walked into the house, I had to leave the stuff at the door, go in, be with my family, and cut that stuff off. But that's really kind of hard for a single mom to be able to do that, because she's carrying the weight of two parents at that time. Wow, the numbers are tough when you really break that down and look at it. And for instance, if you take that $22,000 budget, plug it into the Dave Ramsey budget, they've got about $390 some for rent, and we both know those numbers don't work. And so you can imagine 22,000, you have a $500 major repair, it kind of puts the brakes on everything. Wow. Transportation really went to the top of our list really quick. And so that's the item that they cannot pay for. So you cannot do maintenance, but typically what happens with a car is you don't do maintenance. It doesn't cost you that $100 now, but it's additive. So you got work rotors, you don't replace them, it ends up wearing the ball joints out. Then we got drive axle, so that $100 repair turns into a $1,000 repair over 6 or 7 months because you didn't get the rotors fixed. And so what we see is, you don't have to get the maintenance done right now, so the car gets into a worse situation. If they've got to choose rent and they've got to choose food over the car, then you get not paying taxes on the car, not getting it re-registered, not getting the inspection done, and so those things can go by the wayside while you can still buy food and pay for rent to have somewhere to live. So we kind of, we've worst case scenario, we had a mom that was using borrowed tags, didn't have insurance on the car because she couldn't afford it, and had an open title actually. And so she's fine unless she gets pulled over, and then all of a sudden she's got these court fees, and it just really is just a landslide of things. And so the cars really went up to the top of the list pretty quick.
That's incredible. The stats are staggering, and that has to be one of the hardest jobs possible as being a single mother. Um, and so you guys at Giving Words, you're able to help from a lot of different angles, but vehicles, auto repair, that has really gone to the top of your list as a way that you can help out. What was the progression like? Talk about, maybe give us some stats on 2017 was when you started Giving Words, and then maybe talk
Right.
about the first year, and then what you all saw in the second year, and maybe how you're projecting on maybe just some numbers of how you're being able to help these single mothers.
Right. So in 2018, we gave away 4 cars to single moms in need, and we also repaired 10 cars. In 2019, we gave away 8 cars, so we actually doubled our car giveaways, and then we tripled our car repairs. So we went from 10 to 30. In 2018, we had about 8 partners. 2019, we had over 60. We've added dealerships to the network. We've added tow truck companies. Obviously, we have partner repair shops that play a key role. And really kind of backtrack a little bit. When we first started Giving Words, obviously nobody knows about us. They don't know what the vision, the mission is, and what we're doing. So there's not many donor funds coming in. And so the CTE program at Louisa County High School was a very big key component, because that's what really gets our costs down. And it's not really about cost down. It's more about impact and being able to help 4 moms opposed to 1. And so just to give you an example, we had a mom that she failed inspection. It was going to cost around $650 to do all these things. And by running it through the CTE program and then using our partnership with AutoZone, which gives us discount parts, we were able to repair and push that car out the door for $84.99 Giving Words cost. And that was actually free to the mother, so she didn't have to pay for that. So if that mother would have paid the $650, then what would that have done to her? You know what I mean? It would have really turned things upside down. And then for us to be able to do it for $84.99. And then an exciting thing that happened last year, we actually gave away 3 cars at one time. And that's kind of a vision that I had a while back. It was like 4 months earlier. I was like, I want to give away 3 cars at one time and have these mothers together and kind of have this happen. And to do that, there's a lot of stuff that has to fall in place. Like, you got to have cars. You got to have them all repaired at the same time. You got to have 3 mothers in need. And it's something that I prayed about. And all of those things just fell in place. The neat thing is when they fell in place was on Giving Tuesday. And so most nonprofits are trying to pull funds in on Giving Tuesday, and we were able to do a give back on Giving Tuesday and help 3 moms. And these were moms that needed to get back and forth to work, and so it was neat to be able to do that. And the day before Giving Tuesday, on Monday, we gave away a car as well. And so if you look at the Kelly Blue Book on the 4 cars we gave away, it's around about $11,000. And Giving Words had $700 in all 4 cars. And so that gets back to amount of impact, and how many more moms we can help based on the partnerships and community support. And so if you look at, and we kind of talked about this briefly early on. So there, in 2016, I think the statistics in the U.S., there were 16.2 million single mothers in the U.S. And so if I gave each one $1, I'd need 16.2 million bucks. So on Giving Tuesday and that Monday, if I would have had to spend $11,000 to give 4 cars away, there's no way that I would be able to have the impact that I need to have. But doing it for $700, you can imagine what I can do with $11,000 and how far I can make that spread. The reason we have the partner repair shops is we don't want to overburden the CTE program, because they still have to carry on class, teach and train. And so the kids actually get to learn and train on these vehicles. And so the partner repair shops take care of the overflow. So if we have a massive amount that comes in, we can disperse to partner repair shops and keep things flowing. And the partner repair shops have been very important with the school shutdown, because if we didn't have the partner repair shops, we wouldn't be able to have any impact right now. So we're missing our CTE programs, our students. And the thing that's been really neat for me with the CTE program as well is the character building that goes on in that process, because these students are actually investing into these cars, and they actually get to participate when we give those cars away. And usually we have 1 to 2 students that are in tears just because they kind of see like, this is what I did and this is how it helped. And for me, it's neat to be able to be a byproduct of the process.
That's awesome.
And so that's just, yeah.
There's so many aspects that I would love to dive in on what you talked about there. And I think one of the stats, there's a lot of stats that stand out to me with this, but I think one of the stats that really stand out for you all is, I think you said you went from 8 partnerships to 60 in over the course of a year. Is that right? So
Yes,
I would venture to say that that's really good when it comes to, nonprofits developing different partnerships. Eddie, talk about how were you able to leverage those partnerships? Why did those partners want to come on board? Just talk a little about that.
Sure. So there's a lot of good people out there that want to participate, and sometimes it's difficult because people will do things and then it may not quite work out when you do that thing, and you can kind of, people can get a bad taste in their mouth, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And for me, Giving Words kind of gives a platform to be able to, we kind of bridge that link. So there's a single mother that needs help. We've kind of worked this single mother through a process, and then we link her up with this partner, and it kind of works really well. So I've got a partnership in Charlottesville, a partner repair shop, and they have repaired 3 cars. Well, they've actually repaired 5 cars, and 4 of them they've done completely for free. And that was not my intent, that Giving Words would pay a reduced rate and Giving Words would pay for parts. Obviously, when we run it through the CTE program, we've got free labor there, and we're only paying for a part. So that's how that $650 repair turned into an $84.99 repair. But this partner repair shop sees the vision, understands the disparity, understands the need, understands the vision, and so they've done 4 cars, and we've paid for no labor and no parts. So that money is then able to go into other aspects of Giving Words to support mothers in other ways. And so we've got a windshield company that has done 5 windshields for us, 4 of them for free. And so if you look at a windshield, you're looking at probably, depending on what type of car, 250 to 300. You multiply that times 4, that's a pretty big number. And they've donated their time and material. And so that has a massive impact. Now, I paid for 1 windshield, no labor. And basically the partnerships that we have, if a business is struggling because they're helping us, and they cease to exist, then I no longer have a partnership. And so one of the windshields, we actually paid for the cost of the windshield, no profit on the windshield whatsoever. But they didn't have any work. And so kind of the agreement we have with our partnerships, if you're struggling and you need to bill us. But if you have an abundance, then you can do reduced rates or whatever you feel you would like to do as far as giving. So there's a lot of give and take with Giving Words in the partnerships. What we've seen with our partnerships is we've actually seen their business grow as they give. And so they do this windshield, and then more work comes in. or I've actually had a partnership as a partner repair shop that was basically doing some work for us for free when we first got started. And they would pray like, hey, we don't know what we're going to do next week. And they're doing giving words work, right? And they're wondering about next week, like what they're going to do. Like, we need 2 big trucks next week to make payroll, and they get 4. And now they don't have enough time to get it done. So my hope with the Giving Words partnerships has always been that Giving Words becomes an asset to the partnership, to where it's growing their business, because the customers that they have know what they're investing in, and in turn want to go there and invest in them. So we create it. And one thing that I want to do too, as part of the vision, is creating a Giving Words network. And we've actually tested this out. So let's say I've got a mom that's increased her income, and so she can now pay for her car repairs within the Giving Words network. You know what I'm saying? So instead of Giving Words paying the $84.99, the mom actually paying it. And so that puts money back into Giving Words. The other thing that happens is, typically if you go to a repair shop, you get your car repaired, to get your keys, you got to pay the bill. And so we actually had a mom that just went through the process, increased her income. She went from probably 20 some thousand to 42, 43,000. And she had a radiator go out. We had to tow the car. We also had to, buy the radiator, get it installed. It was a Subaru. So you're probably looking at about $650. And so if she would have had to pay the $650, she would have been right back where we started before we got her. But through the Giving Words network, we did that for $230, and she could afford the $230. And then we gave her 30 days to pay it. And so she didn't have to pay it right up front. She could budget and plan for it. And then the other thing that happens too with single moms is you have this bombardment of bills, because there's never enough. And so we've actually had stories where moms have like burned the bills in the fireplace, or just let them stack up and never open them. And so a lot of times with bill collectors that I've learned in my own life, if I just make a phone call, I get grace. If I don't make the phone call, I don't. And so let's say, for instance, as part of a byproduct of the Giving Words network, if a mom owes us money and we can train her to call us, and we can extend it 60 days, 90 days, or whatever that is, or we even forgive it because something's happened and shifted. Well, now we're teaching her how to deal with bill collectors and things that she has a really hard time doing. So that we want to create natural progressions of growth within Giving Words, offering that grace. We may even forgive that bill, but at least we're teaching them to fish, opposed to just constantly handing out fish. So how do we progressively work through this process to make them stable to where they can handle this stuff on their own? And a big key component for me is the actions that we're doing, and the money that we're spending is God's love in action, okay, with no strings attached. Well, if we can use that vehicle then to connect them to community is where they're going to succeed. So the process of helping with this repair and God's love in action is then a process of connecting them to community, because we all thrive in community. I've been successful because I have people that I'm involved with that cheer me on. And so if we can get those moms in that same position, they're going to be successful. And that's a really key component of Giving Words, is like the initial part is pulling us out of this activating event, but it's in the community that comes along with it, that this mom has somebody to call and say, hey, I'm behind 2 months on my utility bill. What do I do? I can't get my budget right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It took me a long time personally to figure out my own budget. And trying to do it under distress is much more difficult too. And then if you go, if you think about it, $42,000 survival budget, $22,000, it doesn't work. So we're constantly in this stress. And then you have everything else that comes along with that, the flat tire, whatever it may be. So it's just trying to lighten that load and for them to have a team.
Man, this is so good, Eddie. This is awesome. I love it. So giving words, the crux of your whole mission is giving first, but you're also empowering these moms along the way. And I love what you said about the auto repair shops and all these different partnerships. But by them giving back, they're starting to see their business increasing. And I just love that lesson. And I think if people were to take something from this, especially in a time like we're in right now, where everybody has challenges that are going on. There's challenges with COVID, with the protests that are occurring right now, the landscape that we're in. That mindset of just giving back, ultimately being the solution. Would you say that you're even teaching those concepts to these mothers?
Right. Yeah. And see, part of our hope as well, and we've run a couple of modules, and so one of the things that we did. So if you think about it, if we have our mothers that we're working with, one of the things that they'll do to give back is we've taken our moms into a nursing home, and there's so much need there. There's so much wisdom there. And so we went into the nursing home. We took like bowling ball and different things, and these kids are playing in the common area, and these people with lots of wisdom instead of just old people with lots of wisdom are watching these kids, and they just have so much joy. And so you're kind of connecting the beginning of life and end of life. And we put bird feeders up across the front of the nursing home, across the back. And it was just really neat to see that interaction. And then those moms get to feel this purpose as well, that they're invested in someone else. And so that was a neat experience for me. And then another component that we're looking at is this really works on partnerships. And obviously, you have to have funding. And then increased funding is increased impact. And then one of the things we're looking at national accounts. So like I've got an account with AutoZone. One of the tests that we ran is we had 2 single moms in Richmond that needed help. We ordered our parts here at AutoZone, set them up with POs, and then they can pick those parts up at any AutoZone. And so they were able to pick those parts up with POs, and then volunteers repaired those cars. And so if you look at Giving Words, if I've got a partner church, a CTE program, partner repair shops, a consignment shop, storage unit partnership, I can do this in any location within this country. And so the hope is local, regional, national. And a lot of this stuff is been born organically. So, we had a police officer out of Albemarle. They donated a dryer. I've got this dryer. I can't load 15 dryers up at my house because I don't have room for them. And so I reached out to Trevilian Self Storage. We created a partnership with them. They gave us a reduced rate. Now I've got somewhere to put this dryer. 2 months later, middle of winter, one of our moms, a dryer went out. So we were able to take that dryer from the storage unit, give it to the mom. Obviously, we pick a dryer up that's broke. And I'm all about connecting dots and impact. And so now I've got this broken dryer. So it's in my truck. I can drive to the dump and drop it off and go back home and lay down. Or I can create a partnership. So reached out to Fuller Appliances, talked to those guys. They have partnered with us. They'll diagnose it at no cost. They will repair it at no labor cost, and Giving Words pays for the part. So now these broken appliances that I pick up, I have the opportunity to fix those for $15 part, or maybe it's a $75 part. But now I'm picking up something broken that I'm being, economical with, as far as putting that back out into another mother's hands. And so that's the type stuff that we're looking at is taking the unused, making it usable. How can I extend that dollar and turn it into 10, turn it into 15? And if we're going to hit a 16.2 million number, we have to work with a network. We have to work with partnerships. We have to work with community. We have to work with churches, um, because that's where our moms are going to be successful. So it's kind of, and this kind of goes back to the OCD. That has become an asset for me. It's an Achilles heel, but it's also an asset as well, because it allows me to see things differently, and to think outside the box. And giving words is all about thinking outside the box. So how can I tackle 16.2 million moms? It's not going to be within this box. You know what I mean? I've got to stretch the limits everywhere. And so where can I stretch those? What partnerships can I create? I mean, one of my hopes is to partner with, King's Dominion and different places like that, to be able to offer mom a package where she can go off and like have a little bit of enjoyment. You know what I mean? Because we all need breaks. And so how can we give our moms breaks as we're helping them work through this process? And so that's kind of what's going on. To walk way back, 2008, I was in Honduras. I saw a child digging through a dumpster. I was in a bus. I snapped a picture of it. I still have that picture. So I automatically, my brain starts clicking and trying to connect dots. So, okay, this child digging in a dumpster. How do I change that? So I started researching Honduras. In Honduras, with the companies that are over there, if a Honduran can speak English, it will move them from poverty to middle class immediately if they have English, which will change their life. And so that's giving words, and you're actually literally giving words. So that's where the name came from.
Wow.
And then we didn't open until 2017. And what happened, I had some difficult valley moments. My grandmother needed my help. I began to take care of her and travel from Virginia to North Carolina once a week for 3 years, which is about a 7.5-hour trip, round trip. And so I'd, leave at, probably 6 o'clock in the morning, travel to North Carolina. I'd get home probably about 11. About a year and a half into that, I got custody of my granddaughter at 4 months old. And so my daughter was at Liberty Godparent Home. And so I added that on my trip to North Carolina. So I started leaving at like 4:30 in the morning and getting home, depending on my visit at Liberty Godparent Home. Sometimes I would get home at 1 o'clock in the morning the next day. So I drive past Liberty, stop, hang out, see my daughter, work through the process with what was happening there. She was there for about 9 months. Travel to North Carolina, take care of Nanny, spin around, come back home, sometimes stop at Liberty a second time, hang out a little bit, and then travel on back home. And I did that to have impact in my daughter's life while she was working through this process. And it turned out after she got out of Liberty that things didn't go so well. So we actually took Charlotte into our home, and she's 4 years old now. She sees her mom, has a good relationship. We're just kind of doing it right now. And so if you take Honduras in 2008, me seeing the Honduran child digging a dumpster, you go back probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and me taking care of my grandmother. When I started taking care of my grandmother, Honduras is not an option at that point. And then when I started taking care of Charlotte, I know that I've got this 4-month-old, and I just can't go to Honduras and carry this out. So the thought was, what can I do here and now? And it's what Giving Words is doing right now. And so that vision kind of shifted with my grandmother. And if you take the things that we did at the nursing home, God uses those valley moments to create beauty. So basically, when I would go to North Carolina, I would take Charlotte with me. And so you can imagine a 97-year-old grandmother holding a 4-month-old and feeding a baby for the first time in maybe 10 years, that had actually had gotten to the place to where she had lost the will to live and to move. And so she would sleep in her recliner. After about a year, I had her out of the recliner, back in her bed, and she was actually dancing. And that was a connection of Charlotte and Grandma. And
Hmm.
so the nursing home idea and the bird, so like with my grandmother, I went to Lowe's, I spent $23. I got a bird feeder stand. I got a bird feeder. I stuck it outside Nanny's window because she would sit there at that window and stare at that window at nothing and look forward to fall because the leaves would change. And other than that, everything was the same. So I put that bird feeder out there, and you would have thought I'd have parked a Mercedes out front of her house. And so a lot of times when we're dealing with relationships, really, small things matter.
Hmm.
And so that was $23 that I spent, and that I watched her have so much joy every single day out of that $23. And so when we went to the nursing home, we put up 6 bird feeders, and I let these moms and children put them up. And we had people within the nursing home filling the bird feeders up and engaged in this process. And there was just so much joy in that. And it's a very small thing with big impact. And so if you look at Giving Words, you look at all these things we're doing at reduced cost with big impact. And so, we can take $1,000 and give away 5 cars.
Hmm.
I don't know anywhere that you can take $1,000 and give away 5 cars. And when you give those 5 cars away, you're giving life away. You're giving
Yeah.
opportunity away. One of our partnerships that I'm so excited about is Network to Work out of Charlottesville, and they've kind of moved into Louisa as well. So we're able to connect our moms to Network to Work, which gives them better job opportunities, which is part of what we want to do. And so a lot of our partnerships, we want to handle what we can handle, but I don't need to be a food bank because we have a food bank. Another aspect I'll tell you about that happened is I reached out to Hey Gorgeous Boutique. And so we have a partnership with a consignment shop. And I would like to have a partnership with the consignment shop everywhere, because what happens is the women and ladies in Louisa can go to the consignment shop. They can put the clothes on the Giving Words account. What happens is when those clothes sell, they fund the Giving Words account. And now my moms can shop there with a voucher, and they're basically getting clothes for free. So they could go into Goodwill and get clothes, but going into a consignment shop is an experience opposed to just pulling stuff off the rack. And so when they go into this consignment shop, Elle's there. Um, she's got such a wonderful personality. She loves on everybody that walks through that door. So I know every mother that walks into that consignment shop with a voucher is going to be cared for. She's going to be loved. She's going to feel important. And that's what that brings to the table. And the expense to Giving Words is zero because it's community supported. So I could have went and bought $100 Target gift card, but what do I get? I get a mom that goes into Target. She gets clothes. She goes through the line. There's no community. There's no connection. Now she can go to Elle's shop, have an experience, and I can take that $100 and spend it on a car part. And so that's something that organically that happened. And so we've already created a partnership in Orange with Terry's Place that we can do this same thing. And so if you look at it, we're kind of like, so we've got a partner repair shop in Orange, which is CNC Auto. Had a car over there last week. We have a partner tow company over in Orange, which is Orange County Towing. I've got a consignment shop, and so we're starting to build those type relationships in Orange so we can do the exact same thing we're doing here in Louisa. I've got 2 partner repair shops. I've got Airport Road Auto Center in Charlottesville. I've got Seville Classic Cars in Charlottesville. I've got The Point as a partner church. And so we're growing that network as well. And we also have K-Tech. We actually, before COVID hit, we were processing a car through K-Tech, which was very exciting for me to have another career and technical education program on board, especially in Charlottesville. And if you think about it, so I've given away 3 cars. Well, excuse me, I've given away 2 cars in Charlottesville that went to single moms that came through the She Shelter, which is domestic violence. And so you can imagine, well, it's hard to imagine but imagine dealing with everything that we've talked about, and then also having to make the decision to leave an abusive situation, and that's what lands you in being a single mom. Um, we've got a mother that we haven't brought in yet. We're waiting for her to contact us, but she actually lost her husband that was 30 years old to COVID. And so she's got 4 kids, and now she finds herself being a single mom. Um, we've got another one that lost a husband to a car accident. And so, 20 years ago, the single mom, or 40 years ago, you've got this single mom that, had this child out of wedlock, the guy left. It's not that way anymore. There's death, sickness, injuries, all kind of different dynamics. And if you take that mother that lost her husband to COVID, that's not something that she planned on. And all of a sudden she's in this new position and needs a support system. Car accident, you know what I mean? That's not something that we planned for. So there's some very difficult circumstances out there that these moms are finding themselves in. And what our hope is that Giving Words can be a vehicle to connect to different partnerships to be able to have impact in their life. And really what you're looking at is when you have impact in that mom's life, you're actually having impact in that child's life that can change how they grow up, how they perceive the world. And that's a life-changing process. And then the children that they have. So it's a large task. And when we started Giving Words, I remember December 2017, looking at the statistics, going 16.2 million moms. If you look at the statistics in Louisa, I'd have to pull the numbers up, but I think it's over 32% of babies born in Louisa are to single mothers. In Orange is at 39%. I think Louisa is around 36. So, I mean, if you think about that, you're almost 1 in 2 children being born to a single mother. And so that's a pretty big number. And if we can connect the dots, with partner churches, partner businesses, many make light work. And I remember we talked about this briefly is, if you take $10 a person times 100 people over a year, for that one person, it's $120. Well, I repaired a mother's car for $84.99. And so that one person given $10 a month took a $650 repair and repaired it for $84.99. But if you take that, multiply that by 100 people, now you got $12,000. So how much impact can we have with $12,000? And so 2018, we got the BAMA grant and we got the Louisa Community Fund grant. And so if you look at 4 cars to 8 cars and 10 repairs to 30 repairs, those grants is what allowed us to have the increased impact. Now, it's still not dollar for dollar because we're getting free repairs sometimes. And so it expands it even further, but you still have to have those dollars to pay the $84.99. And so the donor money is important, but we're able to take that and create a much larger impact with what does come in. My cheapest repair I did was $1.19. We had a mom that had been out of work for a month. Car wouldn't start. So Jenny and I rode out to her house, actually took Charlotte with us. Jenny and Charlotte inside visiting with the mom and her kids and the mom's mother. It's middle of winter time. She had parked the car downhill, and most moms can't afford to fill their car up with gas. There have been points in my life that I've not been able to afford to fill my car up with gas. I put a quarter tank in at half a tank. And then as my life progressed, I got to the point that I could fill my car up. And I always fill my car up now. But when I do it, I still remember the times that I couldn't. And so one of the things that we do, that we get to do is if I have a moment where I've got a moment with the mom's car and I'm test driving it to check it out, I'll go fill it up full of gas. And when the mom gets in that car and she sees that tank full, you wouldn't believe the smile that's on her face.
Hmm.
And you're talking about $30 and the impact that that has, that she doesn't have to worry about if she has enough gas to take her children to daycare or to get to work because she's got a full tank of gas. She doesn't have that thought on her head, how far is this quarter of a tank of gas going to get me? And that's, so a lot of my own experiences that God has taken me through these valleys out the other side, and I've been able to see that blessing on the other side and to be able to have that same impact on others. And so there's a lot of brokenness that the Lord's walked me through, and there's a lot of healing, and I want to see our moms have that exact same process. And so it's been neat for me to take my own experience and my own heart and overlay that into Giving Words as an extension. And for me, I see Giving Words as I'm very humble that we've been able to create what we've created. It's funny, majority of my life, I've always wanted to invent a widget because I'm a designer. I want to invent, the next flip top or fancy spoon or whatever. And so I'd always think about inventing something and that it was going to be a physical object. And I'm settling more into inventing a process. And so Giving Words is a process. My hope and dream for Giving Words is that it outlives my life cycle. And one of my biggest goals is to grow Giving Words with partnerships, staff, volunteers that know the ins and outs of Giving Words from one end to the other to where it outlives my life cycle, that this has an impact, and that it goes on for generations after generations. And so it's not about me, it's about the team. We've got some very dynamic people that have come on board with us. Allison Coleman, we got Kara Dix, we got Ricky that's come on board. Myself and Jenny, we've got a lot of other moms that volunteer in the background. And so it's really, for me, it's building that team, the rest of that team knowing the inner workings of Giving Words so well that if, not that I'm planning on going anywhere, but if something happens to me, it still moves forward. And so that's why I'm kind of, running through, creating systems and processes. We just put in software. It's really hard to engage volunteers if it's all in here and complex spreadsheets. So for the last 2 years, I've been operating on spreadsheets and color coding, and you're getting these cars donated, so you have to track them. What shop are they at? Who's working on them? How much money's been spent on them? 1099, 1098Cs, all this stuff. And so that's why implementing that software was so important. So all these people have a box to fill out, and if the box is not filled out, it turns red, opposed to all right here. So it's been very exciting just to kind of watch Giving Words grow. We just recently got another grant that came in, and I kind of heard this just about success and growing, and you kind of start this wheel turning, and it begins to turn faster and faster and faster. And so if you look at Giving Words and think about 2017, 8 partners to 60 partners, that's a tremendous amount of growth just in partnerships. And then going from, let's say, 8 or 9 moms to 44, and what that looks like. And then if you even think about the 44, I believe in Louisa, we got around 2,700. So I've got to have the systems and processes in place. I'm like 1.2% of the total volume that I need to have for impact. So we've got to have systems and processes to be able to handle this. So, but it's, back to what I was saying, just very, very humbled that God has given me the opportunity to utilize the valleys that I've walked through, and the blessings on the other side to create this. And, I'm a co-founder. My wife was in this process as well. Being a single mother for 10 years, she has so much information that goes into giving words, and so much heart, because she's been there and lived it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was a single dad for a while. And so I get it, but being a single dad and being a single mother are two different deals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you look at the income disparity between male and female, you know, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, man.
um,
This is awesome, Eddie, and I feel like we could keep having this conversation for another 2 hours here, and it's so clear just how
yeah,
passionate you are about what it is that you do. And just in hearing you talk, I've just been so impressed with your ability to stay creative in this process, to connect the dots, to use adversities that have come into your life to really see the equal or greater benefit that's going to come out of that. And I just think there's so many lessons that people can learn. I think it's clear that you're making such a big impact that's going to continue to grow. And so it's inspiring for me, and I'm super excited to watch what you all continue to do. Just for our listeners as well, how can people find out more about Giving Words? How can people get involved if they'd like? What's the best way to find out more?
yeah. So really, if they want to check us out on Facebook, that's where most of the live feed updates are coming. So it's just at Giving Words VA is the Facebook link. And so we'll do like Mom Story Mondays when we have them. We've helped the mom and she's responded with how this has impacted her life. We do Team Member Tuesdays. We got a neat one coming out this Tuesday. We do Thankful Thursdays, which is kind of like taking a partner that's really helped us out. Like just 60 some partnerships. I'll mention another one is Danny's Upholstery. Kids pull the headliner out. I drive it over to Danny's Upholstery. They take care of it. I drive it back to the school. They put it back in. And so there's another partnership. You can imagine having this really nice car. It looks great, but the headliner's falling on your head and you got thumbtacks in it. I've driven in a car with thumbtacks in the ceiling 2 times in my life. If you got kids, those things eventually fall out.
Yep.
Not very safe. So we have to have headliners, and when they come up, Danny's Upholstery. So we have all these people in the background that are doing these things, so, headliner a van, $250. Well,
Yep.
What if I had a partnership? So it's all about partnerships. The Giving Words song and video, that was a vision 14 months ago. I had this idea that I wanted a song that was written specifically for our moms and Giving Words, and then I wanted it put to video. And at that time, I had no songwriter, no band, no videographer.
Yeah.
And this is my plan. And I have none of those skills. But through prayer and God providing, I was at a church. I heard this group sing. I looked over at Jenny. I'm like, they're going to write our Giving Word song. I'm going to go ask them. And she's like, you can't walk up to strangers that you don't know and ask them to write you a song. And so I was like, stay right here. I'll be right back. Walked up to them, talked to them briefly, told them what we were doing. We'd love to write you a song. Okay, first check. We got somebody that'll write us a song. And so I began, it was a year process, but I began to send them our mom stories. And so they could see the heart of these mothers and Giving Words and how this was playing out. So over a year period of time, they wrote this song. I had prayed for wow, man. So just to go back just a little bit. So when we first started, I was borrowing a car trailer, picking cars up. I would get home at 10 o'clock at night. It would take me 4 hours to pick a car up, drive it to the high school, drop it off, take the borrowed trailer back to the person I borrowed from, and then get back home. And I got a full-time job during the day. So you can imagine, I get home for dinner, I leave at 6 o'clock, and I get home 4 hours later. And then I was also repairing these cars sometimes in the driveway because I didn't have partner repair shops. And so all this struggle at the beginning helped develop these partnerships. And so I've been in the mix, and I also know what these partnerships are giving to us because I've had to do it. And so that offers a lot of respect for me, for our partners. So I want to make sure that I'm honoring them with everything I do within Giving Words, because I've done the work that they're doing. So I've got a partner now that tows our cars for us. So I'm not borrowing a car trailer moving stuff around. And so, and that thought just came to me just because, 2.5 years ago, I was a one-man show, and 8 partnerships lightened the load. But now we've got 60 that are taking on towing and so many different aspects. And so that's what makes this work so well. And I forgot where I was going before I diverted to that.
You're awesome, because I can tell how much you want to make sure that you're giving credit to all your partners and the people that are coming on your team, because you know that this doesn't get done as a one-man show. You know that it takes partnerships.
Well,
and so it's worth taking a little extra time, I know, for you to make sure that the credit goes there. But I know, just we're talking about just how can people find out more about Giving Words, and just as we kind of wrap up here, and so that people can get involved.
Yeah. So really just that Facebook page, the @GivingWordsVA, you're going to find out a lot of information. We're actually in the process of flopping over our website, and so it'll be a live Facebook feed in there, and that's just www.givingwordsva.org. So you'll see some information there. The Giving Words video and song is on the homepage. We've got some links on the news stories that aren't working right now that we've got to revise, because we've had CBS and NBC come out, and those links on the website took you to their websites, and those pages are down now, because after content gets old, after a while, they'll pull that stuff down. And then the other person, where I was going with this is with these players that came in, I was doing all the Facebook stuff. Like, we would give a car away and I'd do a quick, pop up. And so for 4 months, I prayed for anybody to be able to take over our social media platform. And Kate at the high school had been talking to Greg DeRazio. And so he's got DeRazio Communications, ended up meeting him for coffee. And so he does website, social media, all that stuff, and it's taken so much weight off of me. And our impact in 2019 happened as well because I had that stuff off my plate. So that was a big portion of it right there. And so I prayed for him for 4 months, didn't know who he was, sitting in the coffee shop with him one day. He's like, dude, I want to help. I'm not mechanically inclined. I'm like, do you know social media? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's where you need it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, cool, Eddie. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're on a little beach hiatus yourself, and so really appreciate you carving out some of your downtime to share with us. I know people are going to get a ton of value out of this. And so if you are listening in, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, make sure you feel free to leave some comments, leave some feedback for us. That helps other listeners, helps encourage them to listen. And so hopefully you found some value out of this. But Eddie, thanks again for sharing. Really appreciate it. Awesome.
Yep.
Take care. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks so much.
You bet. Awesome. Have a good one.